if you think about the issue of foreign aid, and in my opening statement, I said that between 1970 and 1998, when aid for Africa was highest, that is when our challenges began, and poverty levels rose from 11% to 6%. And let me tell you now, having looked at that, what aid does. Number one, what aid does is that it comes with conditions. And so aid skews your policy direction in terms of how you think as a country and as a continent. So you abandon your own ideas about what you need to do to grow and start embracing what people think is important for you. What other countries need is not necessarily what Africa needs. What Europe needs is not what Africa needs. So when you skew your policies to the direction of what the aid, where aid is coming from, then you start focusing on the wrong things. If you're living in 2022 and someone is telling you to focus on things that are 1960, then that is part of where challenges are. For example, if I just give a specific example, we've had infrastructure on the continent which is technically obsolete. So what happens is that we pick up things that have been dumped on the other part of the world, and we decide that because we are accepting aid, then that is what we need, when in actual sense that's not what we need. There's no foreign country that will give you aid so that you can compete them and outmaneuver them. And therefore it means, for as long as you receive aid from a certain entity, you will always receive aid that will never make you better than them or like them. Secondly, what foreign aid does, again, it comes with conditions. And one of the conditions is what has led to the exploitation of Africa in terms of natural resources. More than half of the African continent's resources, natural resources, the world resources, are actually on this continent. That's partly why we have countries like Congo still asking for foreign aid. Why? It's because some people have decided that Congo must remain the way it is so that it can continue receiving aid, so that then other people may continue exploiting their resources. Thirdly, as long as we continue receiving foreign aid, our capacity will never grow. What do I mean by that? We will always be begging for resources while we are not building our capacity. But on the other hand, the few experts that we have are moving to the countries that are giving us aid because they are the ones who understand this continent, are being used as resources for purposes of exploiting Africa more. If you look at the global entities that work with Africa, that give us money, most of the people behind the technology, behind the manpower, actually come from this continent. And that is what is perpetuating the entire lack of equity between Africa and the rest of the world. Standing here, I work for a Pan-African organization. What we do, we believe that it's about Africa, for Africa, by Africans. So what we do is that we do research on this continent. We are supposed to resolve the problems and challenges of this continent ourselves, because we know for sure that there's no one who has the best interests in Africa apart from Africans themselves. What we need to do now, and I know that we'll get into that debate, is partnerships. We do not need foreign aid. We need partnerships. Africa does not need Europe. Europe needs Africa more than Africa needs it. If we closed our borders today, for instance, most of the industries and the jobs in the West will close.